Hey guys, this is Eric from TOURNA-MIX, the ultimate mix competition website. I hope you're doing good. Today we're looking at monster sessions, and it is indeed that. Check it out. This is a big one. 114 tracks. Doesn't even fit on one screen. And I'm going to give you some practical tips today on just how to handle larger track counts. The truth is, it's really not any harder than smaller track counts. There's just sort of, more prep time, more organization, and, it's also probably more important that you really identify what is important in this song and what isn't. Now, clearly every track plays a role, but they're not all created equal. In smaller sessions, let's say you only have 20 tracks, you don't usually get bogged down or misled by the tracks, when there's so few of them. It's pretty easy to identify what's what. But with bigger sessions, it's very easy to sort of lose sight of what matters, what is really driving the song. And we're going to take a look at that today, as well as some other tips. Real quick, let's just take a listen to the song. This is sort of like the ending where everything's playing. All right, so that gives you an idea of what we're working with. It's just a big old pop song, a lot of moving parts. By the way, that was not the official mix. This is just my little mix that I did. The official mix was done by Michael Lito, who also produced this song. And just in case you're wondering, this song actually hasn't officially been released yet. It will be released in July. It's by Cody West. Pretty cool tune. Very excited for Michael and Cody. Hope it goes well for them. Let's take a look at some practical tips now. All right, so first, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's kind of boring, but we got to get organized, okay? And that means color coding, right? However you like to do it, just make sure you color code your tracks and make sure you clear out all of the dead space here. You can see I've done that. It makes it so much easier to judge and understand the arrangement when all the dead space has been removed. So those are two things you should do on every mix, but especially in big mixes. All right, and then I like to organize my tracks by group first. So you can see I have my drums here in red. Then the bass is in blue, my guitars are in green, etc. But within each group, I like to organize the tracks chronologically from how they come in, right? You can see this first track comes in here, then this one, then this one. It's just a very easy way to kind of understand the arrangement. And again, within each section, like here's my guitars, I've gone ahead and done that. If you're a TOURNA-MIX member, this was already done for you. When I created the stems, I labeled them by number. So you should just be able to pull these in and it should look like this. All right. But if it wasn't done for you, that's something you absolutely have to do in a big session. All right. So once you're organized, the next most important thing is to make sure you understand, what the key elements in the song are. So I've gone ahead here and soloed up some of the more important elements of the track. And you can see here, there's only maybe under 20. Like most of this stuff, look at that, all that stuff is muted. Let's hear the song with just like 20 tracks playing.
Stop right now, I don't think it's gonna work too well. I had one chance blown, but I'll make it back on my own.
Right? I mean, I'm sure you'd agree that that already sounds like a pretty complete song. It doesn't have all the filling, but if you could get just those tracks sounding good, right? How much easier is that to think about than all these other tracks? You'd be in great shape. Let me just bring everything back in here. Let's hear it now. Right, it's got a bit more going on, obviously, but it wasn't like it sounded like a completely different song. Point being here, you gotta get the core elements right. And, the good news is in most songs, it's going to be kick, snare, bass, and lead vocal. So as long as you get those four things right, you're generally going to be in really good shape. So don't be confused or, don't be led astray, if you will, by all these tracks, because most of them play a very small role in the overall song. Right, so the next thing I want to touch on is just keeping things simple with your processing. There's a few different things I want to speak about, but the first one is grouping. So for example, this little Oz section here. Okay, it looks like about 10 tracks, right, which I've grouped. You can see they're all outputting bus 11, which is coming over here. And what have I done? Just EQ and compression. So 10 tracks are killed with 2 plugins. That's raw. Wasn't even that big a change. The point is you can really, hack away at these tracks super quickly by grouping. And that was just one quick example. All right, and the other thing is just not over processing. So here's my drum tracks. This is a perfect example. These are my drum tracks. Look at how many plugins I have. 2. Okay, the first one is a high pass filter at something absurd like, 30 hertz. Just really subtle stuff. Okay, and the other one is a little high pass here on the bongos. I have a little high shelf. Basically, I have done nothing to the drums. Let's hear those drums. Let's see if they sound good. Let's move ahead a bit. Right? Basically, that's the raw drums. So in terms of, plugins and mixing, I didn't really feel like I had to do anything. They already sounded great. I mean, my whole thing with mixing, I'm usually in a huge rush, and I'm just sort of an impatient mixer in general. I do not reach for a plugin unless I need to. I've learned that the hard way so many times. Generally speaking, less is more. That isn't to say that you can't dig in and do something extreme if you have to. But holy cow, like those drums just sound great. I mean, bring in the bass. So there's the backbone of the song, and you can see I have a few plugins on the bass here. But really, I've just probably tackled 30 or 40 of the tracks, a third of the tracks, let's say, with like 6 plugins. And, that's just, it's so important to not think that you have to process every track. I mean, can you imagine if you had to actually process 114 tracks? No. I mean, between grouping, which I showed before with the vocals there, like there's one group, there's another group here. I don't even know which one that is, but oh yeah, it's all the chop section. Check this out.
Not so tough.
Right, all that stuff is being grouped and routed to here. So I have a high pass filter and a limiter, cutting off a little bit of high end, but nothing too crazy. This stuff here, don't be fooled. These are just directional mixers, except for this guy, which is just like a little low pass. These are just actually doing panning. That's it. So basically, here's 10 tracks. There's 10 tracks, and it's like 4 plugins, right? And then the drums I hardly touched. The bass I just did like super basic stuff. Little high pass here. This is probably dynamically being triggered from the kick. Bit of basic compression. Actually, let me just show you the bass real quick. Here's the main bass. Just again, a little bit of low end cleanup and some basic compression. Okay, nothing too earth shattering there. And then on the slap bass, all I did is just add some limiting to it and some compression. Right, L1. And a little bit of compression. Then we had the synth bass. Let me just do a little loop here. The synth bass didn't really need anything. Right? Sounds great. I mean, when you have a really, really good production like this, I encourage you to spend 90% of the time just on balance. It really is going to come down to balance. I mean, already I've shown that. Again, the drums and bass. Let's bring in the vocals. Right? A lot of ground covered with very little processing. And in the same spirit as what I've just shown with the drums and bass, here are all the instruments. You can see they're all highlighted here. Most have nothing, okay? Most have, really nothing. I mean, it's probably 30 tracks there and, 10 plugins. These are just actually amp sims on the top, so they don't even really count. And most of these plugins, like you can see here, is just high-pass filtering, right? Just big high passes, nothing fancy. It's not like you need advanced EQ skills to do this kind of stuff. These are all just high passes. And then I have, pretty much the only compressor I seem to use these days on every track. So, here's the instruments. Right? And all that's handled with hardly any processing. Now, you might be thinking, well, okay, but not every production is like that. True. This is a particularly well thought out production. And, pop productions, which are made up of virtual instruments and one shots and, stuff like that, they lend themselves to less processing, I think, than like, stuff with real drums and real bass and real, stuff that was mic'd up. I realize not every song will be this hands off. But the point is that I'm trying to drive home is just when you have a lot of tracks, just make 100% certain you might not have to do anything is the point, right? And if you don't, then don't. All right, so here's where our song stands. Sounding good. We do have some, I have the vocals muted for now, by the way, but we do have some mix bus stuff, which is definitely helping. I do almost every mix through an SSL. I've got a bit of tape running, which on these kind of poppy productions, I like a little bit of tape saturation, but it's pretty subtle. I've got my Pultec, which actually is only just adding a little bit of 30 hertz sub in this case. Looks like I'm rolling off quite a bit of high end here too. Well, not quite a bit, but quite broad. Like this is 5K and up being kind of tamed. I have a tendency to mix a little bright. So sometimes near the end of my mixes, I need to tame things a bit. The black box is pretty cool. This is a pretty famous plugin. Definitely worth looking into. Again, I like saturation on Mixbus for pop stuff. Just kind of makes everything sound a little, I don't know, just more cool to my ear, for lack of a better way of putting it. And then Clariphonic is a special plugin. Let me just show you that. Here it is on. We'll do a little A/B. That's a huge difference on and off. I won't show the other ones on and off. That was the most important. But this sort of comes back again to just keeping your processing simple. I mean, with one EQ, and if you've never seen this plugin, what this is a really fancy high shelf. Okay, so it's adding sheen to the mid-range and the high end, but in a way that only this plugin can do. But in terms of handling large track counts, we've covered a huge amount of ground with one plugin. Right? I mean, wow, that just, the whole mix, it kind of sounded like a demo when it was off, and it sounded far closer to a final product with it on. So, don't underestimate mix bus processing. If you can make one mix move to affect everything for the better, you might as well. All right, so we haven't looked at the vocals yet, and inevitably we're going to have to tackle those lead vocals at some point. And you can see here, these are the lead vocals. I can't remember if I multed them out or if they came to us like this, but there's quite a few of them. And you can see there's definitely a lot more stuff going on here, although it's still not that much overall. So, vocals are going to take more work than virtual instruments and one-shot drums and stuff like that. So you can see I had to do a bit of work here. But it didn't really take that long, to be honest. These vocals had a lot of processing baked into them. Actually, if I were to let me just unmute these here, you can actually just look at the waveforms and tell that these have already been compressed, quite a bit actually. So a lot of the work was already done for us. Actually, if memory serves me correctly, Michael Lito, again, he's the fellow that produced this track. He told me that it was such a big session, like it was over 200 tracks, I think, at one point, that he had to start consolidating things and bouncing down things. And so some of his processing actually got baked into these tracks. For example, like if we do a little loop here on this opening stretch, like here is the pre-chorus vocals. And if I were to mute all of my processing on them and the effects, here they are completely raw.
Knock, knock, got somebody knocking at my door. Don't know what they want.
Right, I mean, those already sound really good. In fact, let me just put those in the track without any mixing.
Knock, knock, got somebody knocking at my door. Don't know what they want. Not sure if it's me.
I mean, those, you could probably just ship it like that. Let's hear them with the processing. Hopefully this will sound better.
Knock, knock, got somebody knocking at my door. Don't know what they want. Not sure if it's me that they're looking for. This ain't right for me, don't do.
In my defense, it actually got quieter with all my plugins on, but it does sound a little tighter with the mixing. Here they are in solo.
Knock, knock, got somebody knocking at my door. Don't know
Little muddy.
what they want. Not sure if it's me that they're looking for. This ain't right for me, don't do that. This ain't right for me, I won't do that. But I'm not so sure. Got somebody knocking at my door. Stop.
All right, and in this case here, like, it's a little more, there's a little more to do than on some of the other tracks, but it's very simple stuff, like on all of those tracks, I just had a bit of EQ taking out some mud, a bit of RVox, which seems to work really well on, on pop stuff, and one of my favorite vocal saturation plugins, Omega A. So if we just look at this one track here, this guy here it is raw.
Knock, 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 got somebody knocking.
Right, you can hear there's definitely some low end stuff, so I brought in a high pass filter.
Knock, knock, knock,
Solves
got
that.
somebody knocking at my door.
Compression.
Don't know what they want, not sure if it's me that they're looking for. This ain't right for me, don't do that. This ain't right for me, I won't do that. But I'm not so sure, got somebody knocking at my door.
Right, just tightens it up, but it wasn't like heavy lifting, right? And then I just copied all those settings over to these other two tracks here, right? So that then we have these guys.
Knock, 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 got somebody knocking at my door. Don't know.
And finally, I grouped them over here, all right, to this auxiliary and used Fresh Air, which is a fantastic plugin. You should definitely grab this; it's free. Here it is without Fresh Air.
Knock, 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 got somebody knocking at my door. Don't know what they want, not sure if it's me that they're looking for. This ain't right for me, don't do that. This ain't right for me, I won't do that.
Incredible plugin. Just amazing for pop. All right, so that was my processing for that little section, and a lot of the other stuff was very similar. You can see here, about three plugins per vocal, usually just a little, little EQ, a little bit of compression, Omega A. Looks like I just copied that over from the first ones to most of them. And then, some effects here and there to taste. All right, and just in case you're interested, here's one more set of lead vocals from the chorus that I mixed. Let's take a listen to those.
Stop right now, I don't think it's gonna went too well. I had one chance blown, but I'll make it back on my own. Am I strong enough to make it right? Knock me back and I'll still come find you. I'm not so tough.
Right, so you can hear that in the raw state they were, I thought, fairly harsh and a little dry, which they're always dry in their raw state, but I added a bit of effects. Let's hear those in the track. So here's fully mixed in the track.
Stop right now, I don't think it's gonna went too well. I had one chance blown, but I'll make it back on my own. Am I strong enough to make it right? Knock me back and I'll still come find you. I'm not.
Again, they got quieter, but you can hear that. That's maybe a better example. You can definitely hear an improvement there. Well, I think it is in sound, and it hinges on all the same stuff from the first one, the first example, which was just some EQ. In this case, I didn't even really high pass. I just wanted to get rid of that harshness. If I were to solo up this main vocal here.
Stop right now, I don't think it's gonna went too
I don't like that.
I had one chance blown, but I'll make it back on my own.
And then into RVox again.
Stop right now, I don't think it's gonna went too well. I had one
And a bit of saturation. So we go from this.
Stop right now, I don't think it's gonna went too well. I had one
this.
chance blown, but I'll make it back on my own. Am I strong enough to make it right?
And for effects, I just have a little stereo delay, some plate reverb, and a bit of micro shift, okay? So those help a lot. Like dry, it sounds like this.
Stop right now, I don't think it's gonna went too well.
Here's the delay.
I had one chance blown, but I'll make it back on
Reverb.
my own. Am I strong enough to make it right?
And
Knock
micro
me
shift.
back and I'll still come find you. I'm not so tough, I don't think I'm gonna.
And then we've got the left, right, and the double.
Stop right now, I don't think it's gonna went too well. I had one chance blown, but I'll make it back on my own. Am I strong enough to make it right?
And then finally, I grouped all those vocals to an auxiliary and added some more saturation, this time from Omega Tweak, which is another very cool plugin. Really, really subtle cut here. It was just still a bit edgy for me. And finally, some soothe.
Stop right now. I don't think it's gonna went too well. I had.
If I remove those, it's just a bit harsher.
Stop right now. I don't think it's gonna went too well.
Just spikes my ears a little.
Stop right now. I don't think it's gonna went too well. I had one chance blown, but I'll make it back on my own.
All right, now we're getting into like just full-blown mixing tutorial, but I'm just trying to show you some processing is a little more advanced than others. But at the end of the day, very hands-off mix, wide open here. Focus on your balance, focus on your main elements, get organized. You know, don't be intimidated by all this stuff here. Whoops, wrong way. All this stuff here, you know, like it's just fluff, right? You gotta identify your cake and your icing. And in this case, you know, kick, snare, bass, vocals is your cake, and all this fancy stuff here is your icing. Luckily, it was handed to us on a very, very, I'm going way too far with this cake analogy. I was going to say something about a platter. Anyway, it was presented to us very nicely. So thank you, Michael, for that. Really fun mix. We're still, as I'm making this, I think we have 10 days until, maybe even more, 2 weeks until the submission period. So if you like mix contests, come check this out. And if you're mixing this song currently and you are struggling with it, I hope some of these ideas helped you out. So yeah, look forward as always to see who wins this thing. We'll talk soon.